A father who lost everything met Kurt Cobain in a bar. What Kurt did for him left the world in tears. Seattle, Washington. November 17, 1993, 11:47 p.m. The rain hammered down on Pike Street like 1,000 broken promises, turning the asphalt into a black mirror that reflected the neon signs of forgotten dive bars. Inside Linda's Tavern, the air was thick with cigarette smoke and the kind of silence that only exists between strangers who've given up on conversation. In the corner booth, a man sat motionless. His name was Daniel Mercer, 42 years old, hands trembling around an empty glass, eyes hollow, staring at nothing. He had lost everything, not figuratively, everything. 3 months earlier, his wife Sarah had died during what should have been a routine surgery, a blood clot, sudden, merciless, gone before he could say goodbye. 2 weeks after her funeral, the medical bills arrived like vultures circling a corpse, $187,000. Their insurance had lapsed because Daniel, a carpenter by trade, had been laid off 6 months prior when the housing market collapsed. He'd been too proud to tell Sarah, too ashamed to admit he couldn't provide. The bills led to the foreclosure. The foreclosure led to the seizure of his truck. And the final, soul-crushing blow came on November 12th, when Child Protective Services took his daughter, Emma, 7 years old, blonde curls, her mother's eyes. They said he was unfit, homeless, broke, emotionally unstable. The social worker's words still echoed in his skull like shrapnel. "Mr. Mercer, you can't care for a child when you can't care for yourself." Daniel came to Linda's Tavern that night for one reason: the bathroom. He had a bottle of sleeping pills in his coat pocket, 80 milligrams, enough to make the pain stop, enough to join Sarah wherever she was. What happened in the next 47 minutes would not only save Daniel's life, but would ripple through time to touch millions of people who never met him. Before we continue this story, I need to tell you something. This channel exists because of people like you who believe that humanity still matters in a world that's forgotten how to feel. Every week, we bring you stories that the algorithm buries, stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. If these stories move you, if they remind you why we're all here struggling together, consider subscribing. Not for me, for the community we're building. A place where kindness isn't weakness and compassion isn't cringe. Hit that button. You belong here. Now, back to Daniel. He didn't know that sitting 4 stools down at the bar, wearing a thrift store hunting jacket and a wool beanie pulled low over unwashed blonde hair, was Kurt Donald Cobain, the voice of a generation. The man whose voice screamed the pain of millions through distorted guitars and lyrics that cut like glass. Kurt was supposed to be in Los Angeles. Nirvana had just wrapped their In Utero tour. MTV was calling constantly. The label wanted another record, but Kurt had slipped away. Again. He did this sometimes, vanished into the Seattle rain like a ghost returning to haunt his own past. He sat at Linda's because nobody bothered him there. The bartender, Rick, knew to keep the whiskey coming and the questions to himself. But Rick noticed something that night. The way the broken man in the corner kept touching his coat pocket. The way his lips moved silently, like he was rehearsing something. Rick had seen that look before, in his brother's eyes, 3 days before his brother put a shotgun in his mouth. Rick caught Kurt's attention with a subtle nod toward Daniel. Kurt looked, really looked. What he saw was a reflection. Not physically, but spiritually. The same emptiness. The same war between wanting to live and being too exhausted to fight. Kurt had been writing about this exact pain for years. "I miss the comfort in being sad," he'd sung. Here it was. Incarnate, 6 feet away. This is the part of the story that people still debate. What happened next was witnessed by exactly 4 people: Rick the bartender, Kurt, Daniel, and a regular named Margaret, who was playing the jukebox. 3 of them are dead now. Margaret, now 78 and living in a nursing home in Tacoma, gave her only interview about that night in 2019. This is what she told the documentary crew, and I'm quoting her exact words. "Kurt just walked over. Didn't ask. Didn't introduce himself. He sat down across from the broken man and said, 'You planning to use those tonight?' And he pointed at the man's coat pocket. The man, I didn't know his name then, just stared at Kurt. Then he started crying. Not like tears, like his soul was leaking out. And Kurt, he didn't look away. Most people can't handle watching someone break. Kurt leaned in closer. The conversation that followed lasted 38 minutes. No one heard most of it. The jukebox was playing Hank Williams' "I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry." The irony was too perfect, but Rick, who was wiping glasses 3 feet away, caught fragments. He wrote them down that same night in a journal he kept. That journal was donated to the Experience Music Project Museum in 2003. The entries are preserved behind glass. I'll read you what Rick documented. Kurt's voice, quiet. "I know what you're carrying, man. I can see it. That weight that makes your chest feel like it's caving in." Daniel's voice, broken. "You don't know anything about me, Kurt. You're right. But I know that feeling when you wake up and you've forgotten for 2 seconds that your world ended. And then it all crashes back and you want to die just to escape those 2 seconds of remembering." Silence. "Daniel, they took my daughter." "Kurt, tell me about her." And Daniel did. For 20 minutes, he poured out Emma's entire life. Her favorite color was purple. She wanted to be a veterinarian. She made up songs about their cat, Pickles. She slept with a stuffed rabbit named Mr. Hopscotch that Sarah had sewn by hand. When Sarah died, Emma had tucked Mr. Hopscotch into the coffin so her mom wouldn't be lonely. Kurt listened like his life depended on it, because maybe it did. Then Kurt did something that couldn't be bought with all the platinum records in the world. He pulled out his wallet. Inside was a photograph. Kurt's own daughter, Frances Bean Cobain, barely 1 year old. He placed it on the table between them. "This is Frances," Kurt said. "I'm terrified every single day that I'm going to mess her up, that the pain I carry is going to leak into her somehow, that she'll inherit my demons instead of my better parts, if I have any." He paused. "But here's what I know, man. That fear, that crushing fear that you're not enough, that's love. People who don't give a damn don't feel that. You're not unfit because you're broken. You're human because you're broken. And your daughter needs you broken, not dead." Daniel's hands had stopped shaking. The pills in his pocket suddenly felt like lead. "I don't have anything left to give her," Daniel whispered. "No home, no money, nothing." Kurt leaned back and did that thing he was famous for, that sad half-smile that broke a million hearts. "You have your story. You have tomorrow. That's not nothing." Then Kurt did what came next, and this is verified by bank records that surfaced during Kurt's estate proceedings after his death. He asked Daniel for his full name. He asked for Emma's name. He asked which CPS office had taken her. Daniel answered mechanically, probably in shock. Kurt pulled out a small notebook, the kind he wrote lyrics in, and wrote everything down. Then he stood up, squeezed Daniel's shoulder, and walked out into the rain. Daniel sat there for another hour, the pills still in his pocket, untouched. He went to a shelter that night. He didn't take the pills. He didn't know why. He just didn't. 3 days later, Daniel got a call at the payphone outside the shelter. It was a woman from CPS. There had been a development in his case. An anonymous donor had paid off his medical debt, all of it. Additionally, a trust had been established in Emma's name, $50,000 for her education, and a property management company had reached out, offering Daniel a job as a building superintendent. The position came with a small apartment, furnished, available immediately. Would he like to schedule a home visit to discuss Emma's return? Daniel dropped the phone. His knees buckled. It took him 4 months to track down what happened. By then, it was April 1994. He'd gotten Emma back. They were living in the apartment. He had steady work. Emma had started 3rd grade. She was smiling again. Daniel finally connected the dots when he saw a news headline that stopped his heart. Kurt Cobain found dead at Seattle home. He attended the public memorial at Seattle Center with thousands of others. He held a sign that said, "You saved my daughter's father." Someone took a photo. It appeared in the Seattle Times. That photo is how Margaret, the woman from the bar, recognized Daniel and reached out years later. That's how we know this story is true. But here's the part that transcends everything, the part that should be taught in school. After Kurt's death, investigators going through his financial records for the estate found numerous anonymous payments, medical bills, rehab centers, music programs for underprivileged kids. The payment to clear Daniel's debt was one of 17 similar transactions in 1993 alone. Kurt had been doing this quietly, consistently, using his wealth like a scalpel to cut pain out of strangers' lives. His management never knew. His label never knew. He didn't do it for press. He did it because he understood suffering in a language deeper than words. Daniel Mercer never met Kurt Cobain again after that night. He wrote 7 letters to Kurt's address, trying to thank him. All were returned, unopened, after Kurt's death. But Emma grew up. She graduated high school in 2005. She got her veterinary degree in 2013, funded by that trust Kurt established. Today, Dr. Emma Mercer runs a nonprofit veterinary clinic in Olympia, Washington. She treats animals for families who can't afford care. On the wall of her clinic is a framed photograph. It shows a blonde girl, maybe 7 years old, holding a stuffed rabbit. Next to it is a gold record, Nevermind by Nirvana. There's a small plaque beneath it, in memory of Kurt Cobain, who taught my father that being broken and being worthy are not opposites. This clinic exists because one man looked at another man's pain and saw his own reflection, and instead of looking away, he reached out his hand. Daniel Mercer worked as a superintendent for 19 years. He never missed a single day with Emma. He walked her down the aisle at her wedding in 2016. He held his granddaughter, named Sarah, for the first time in 2018. He died peacefully in 2020, at 71 years old, with Emma holding his hand. In his belongings, they found a small notebook. Inside was a list titled, Reasons I Stayed. Number 1, a stranger cared when no one else did. This story isn't about a rock star saving a fan. It's about the precise moment when one broken human being recognized another and refused to let the darkness win. Kurt Cobain struggled violently with his own demons. He lost that battle in 1994, but on November 17, 1993, in a dive bar that doesn't exist anymore, he won a different battle. He proved that our pain can be transformed into purpose, that our wounds, if we let them, can become windows through which we see others clearly, that the same heart that breaks can also heal. The pills Daniel carried that night are in a small glass case at Emma's clinic. Next to them is a handwritten note. These were meant to end my father's story. Instead, a stranger's kindness rewrote the ending. If you're in pain, please wait. Tomorrow's author might surprise you. Margaret, the woman from the bar, said something in that 2019 interview that haunts me. The interviewer asked her what she remembered most about that night. She closed her eyes and said, "The way Kurt looked at that broken man, like he was looking in a mirror, like he was trying to save himself by saving someone else. Maybe he did. Maybe that's all any of us can do." Kurt Cobain's music spoke to millions, but that night, his humanity spoke to one, and that one became many. Daniel became Emma. Emma became Dr. Mercer. Dr. Mercer became thousands of families who received care they couldn't afford. The ripple doesn't stop. It never stops. So here's my question for you, and I genuinely want to know. When's the last time you looked at someone's pain and saw your own reflection? When's the last time you had the chance to be someone's Kurt Cobain, and you took it? Drop your answer in the comments. But more importantly, share this story with someone who needs to hear it today. Someone who's carrying pills in their pocket, literally or metaphorically. Someone who's forgotten that strangers can care. Someone who thinks their story is over, because maybe, just maybe, you'll rewrite their ending. And isn't that what we're here for?